Welcome back, Otafest listeners, to our lovely podcast. I am Jay, and I am joined by Angelo this week,
Hello, it's
and
me.
only Angelo.
Only Angelo.
Don't confuse it for other media that may have only in front.
Just Monica.
True.
Just Monica.
Yeah, poor Nancy not feeling well. So we let her have the week off, but I took the week off last week because I've also been crazy busy. So I am back. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, as we have so much to talk about this week, we have some news and announcements.
Get hyped for our all-ages drag show at Otafest Amplified on Friday, May 16th. Hosted by Aurora Matrix, runner-up of Canada's Drag Race Season 4. We'll be dropping our full lineup of performers on April 10th. Stay tuned. Otafest Amplify is included with your Friday admission to Otafest. Can't make Friday? Good news! You can meet Aurora Matrix all weekend in the exhibitor hall. Speaking of Otafest Amplified, did you know that having a light stick increases your ability to get down, and move it all around? Well, guess what? Iridori Lights is going to let you do just that. Iridori Lights are proud to sponsor Otafest Idol Showcase and be a part of the concert featuring Yanagi Nagi.
And a reminder, charity auction submissions for the Calgary Food Bank are open. That's at otafest.com/auction. You can help us support the Calgary Food Bank by bidding on items in the Otafest charity auction, grabbing a photo print at Maid and Butler Cafe, participating in the Gunpla Hanger charity events, commissioning a sketch drive artist, challenging the charity gym at Pokemon League, and donating via our ticketing partner online or physical donation boxes throughout the festival. With your help, we're aiming to raise $15,000 for those in need. As you know, should we reach our goal, you'll get to see our staff take part in some fun games during Otafest's closing ceremonies. So much fun. All proceeds from the auction are donated to Calgary Food Bank.
Last year, didn't we make them walk across the stage without shoes over Lego?
I wasn't there. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. I think that happened. I
remember we've probably done that a couple of times. There's been a couple of times where we had mouse traps too.
Yeah.
We are very nice to our own staff.
We don't want our staff to
very
have
kind.
feet.
Yeah. The fewer toes we have, the harder it is to run across the convention,
Exactly.
putting out fires. Yeah.
Ah.
Speaking of cons, as we are organizing one ourselves, and there are many others happening. A little one just popped up. It's called Ebi Con. I got to go to it earlier today. I think it's just a 1 day thing. And you know, I don't know what their longevity plans are, but it was a fun time. It was mostly a market, you know, a lot of a few stalls here and there of a lot of local artists
Oh.
and you know, but I mean they have artists from sort of ones that are more established in the community and then ones that are definitely more starting out, and that's not a bad thing. They have like a lot of local variety. I saw a lot of, I mean, you standard like charms and decorations and of course like prints and stuff, but there was a lot of, I guess the big thing right now is like crocheted things.
Interesting. Are you
Crocheted
talking
things,
like
yeah.
crocheted articles of clothing or like cross-stitched
Some.
little things like toys and such?
So some of them were like stuffies, right? Which is pretty standard.
Nice.
I saw like a cute like axolotl. There was
You found an
a
axolotl in the dive bar.
yeah. Uh, there was hats, like bucket hats that were crocheted.
Oh my.
Um, the one disturbing thing that I did see was I think there were a pair of crocheted like mittens. I hesitate to call them real mittens because I didn't see finger holes uh or parts for your fingers. They were more like if you just put your hands in socks. And that like, why is that troubling? Well, they were black. That's not troubling. They went up to about halfway up your forearm. That's not troubling. But they were just kitten beans.
Are you sure they weren't actually socks?
No, they were definitely for like they weren't shaped like feet.
So they were just crocheted cat paws. Like,
Crocheted cat
nya.
paws.
Nya.
I don't want it.
Nya.
I
For the
don't want it.
listeners at home who don't get any video, quite frankly, only Jay and I get video of each other, but both of us are making little cat
It's
paws at each
cursed.
other.
It's cursed. I don't want it. But I did think about buying it. Why? Because I like cursed things, but I don't like cursed things. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my. Oh my. I feel
But
like so many people in your life would enjoy Jay with kitty paws.
I'm good. That is like a J of like 15 years ago.
Ah.
But the number one thing that really got to me about it is that I, it got me thinking about small cons,
Okay.
and it got me thinking about, that small con feel and starting up cons and sort of the work you have to put in, obviously, and the logistics of what a small con is and the uncertainties that small cons faces. But really, most of all, my perception of small cons is that I have had some of my best memories from small cons.
My first anime convention in general was Otafest Light 2009.
Was that
Small
when you were a
cons?
soldier?
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. I remember getting marched up to the police. It was great.
I guess.
But small conventions are so fun. They are just a completely different vibe. And I don't know, it's just it doesn't feel as serious.
I mean, I will say that um at this point in time, Ebi Con is more of a market. In fact, it's 100% a market.
Okay.
And there's very little what I would say convention is, where convention has additional content such as maybe having a stage,
Panels and
maybe they're having
guests.
panels or like, well, not necessarily guests. At some point you don't get guests yet, which is completely understandable. And this is not a criticism, it's literally just these are expectations. So maybe they grow. It'd be nice if they did. Like, Otafest being a non-profit volunteer run con for so long and sort of being the big dog in town in that space. I mean, we just want to have a community that supports each other, whether it's someone organizing, like, taking that risk and organizing their own events, or coming to ours and also, splintering off into smaller things, smaller groups, friend groups. We want people to have fun, make friends, make memories. That's all it is. So I saw some
Yeah.
cosplayers at Ebi Con. That was
Oh,
nice.
that's adorable. That's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah, like I hope that they can have more of a cosplayer space next year. Um, Lots of things. I have lots of good hopes for any small event, really, but I get it. It's tough, you know.
It really is difficult out there, but I think that small events like that, because it doesn't feel large and overwhelming, they can be some of the most friendly and approachable events. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like I said, I just have some of the best, most wholesome memories at small cons. And when I say small cons, I mean less than 1,000 people, less than 2,000 people. Like they have just a whole other vibe. If you've never gotten the chance to go, I know it's because one of the reasons is we just don't have that many. Um, but if you get a chance to go, like really take it in and don't just be like, oh, it's small or it doesn't have stuff. It's like it's a different animal and it's nice. Enjoy it.
Like I remember back down in Lethbridge, Dio and I went to Nishikaze once, and it was a
Oh
great little
yeah,
time.
Nishi. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I have great memories of I don't remember the name of it, but the one there was one in St. Albert, um, right north of Edmonton, and then there was one in Red Deer that was Surukon. It's tough. All of it is tough. Otafest had went through the same struggles too, but you know,
yeah,
it's not that every con needs to grow either. It's nice to have small events. There's nothing wrong
exactly.
with small events.
There is always room in the world for more small events.
Hmm.
Oh, but a pretty large event happened over the last week, didn't it? I feel
I
like there was something that
mean,
really shook up the news. Was it Thursday? Wednesday? I can't
depends on your
remember.
time zone, I guess. But I guess we could talk about Nintendo.
Oh, Nintendo! Nintendo. Why would I want to talk about an anti consumer company like Nintendo? What have they done this time? What could they have possibly done that's interesting? Could they have potentially, like, announced Switch 2 or something?
Well, and technically speaking, they've already announced Switch 2. This is actually just more of a conference about what it is that they want to offer initial release wise and what to expect initial release wise. They
Let
didn't
me
talk too much
guess.
about the console.
They got a new Mario Kart and maybe a monkey game. All for
They
the
do.
low price of probably over $100 for the game.
It is pretty rough. But
I can
okay,
stop
so
hamming it up now. From the hardware
price,
perspective, I
yeah,
thought the Switch was
let's
actually
leave the
pretty
price
cool.
last. I mean, they're still in catch up mode technologically. I say that with a lot of hesitance because we've talked about it before and everybody already knows Nintendo isn't playing real catch up.
They
They're
don't
just
care
doing
about
their
being
own
the most
thing.
technologically advanced because,
Yeah.
let's be real, that is a stupid game from a business perspective to play. Instead of
Yeah.
trying to push the boundaries of what's possible, instead just using cheap old hardware that's been battle tested is an entirely valid strategy.
Hmm. Especially if your player base, generally speaking, expects you to do that. Like I don't need to see Mario's where Mario's nose hair become mustache hairs. I don't need that level of definition. I just need to
How
know.
deep do you think the mustache goes up the nose?
I think he doesn't have a brain.
It's just filled with mustache hair, and it just like, does it
Yeah.
come out as he jumps every single time, kind of like weed whacker wire?
You know, that is a question that only
Shigeru
the
Miyamoto can answer.
exactly. Um, but yeah, like looking at what it is, I can see why people should be excited. They're not excited for one big reason, which we've already touched on a little bit, but I'll get there. I'm personally not that excited from what I've seen so far, but only because I'm not a huge Mario Kart person. I will play it as a party game or whatever, but I don't envision myself playing it at home that much. I didn't care about the online Discord-esque chat technology that they're inputting into the console itself. Um, there weren't a lot of release games that I'm super interested in, except for maybe Donkey Kong, which is a wild thing for me to say because I don't really normally care about Donkey Kong. Like the only Donkey Kong games I cared about were on the Game Boy.
On the Game Boy?
Yeah. What my favorite, oh, so first of all, I will go back a little bit. I do like Donkey Kong Country, like the original,
All
and that was
right.
on Game Boy Color for me. I didn't play it
Oh,
on
you
the
didn't.
SNES.
Oh my God. Oh
I
my,
didn't get to play
you
it on the
got
SNES.
the vastly inferior experience then.
But it was still a fun game.
It was a
Like
fun
that's
game. It
important.
was just a lot worse.
Yeah. And then my actual favorite Donkey Kong game is the one where it's like Mario versus Donkey Kong on the Game Boy.
Wait, with Mario versus are you talking about like the original arcade style Donkey Kong but re-released on the Game Boy?
No, it is like so it starts off that way, but like it's more of a puzzle platformer. So like along the way you have to like get keys and you like to open doors into the next level as Donkey Kong kind of chases away and stuff like that. I don't
I
know how to
don't think
better
I've heard
describe
of
it.
that.
It's a super fun game, or at least it was for me. I don't know if people will love it now.
I mean, I
Um,
do remember playing like ports of the original arcade Donkey Kong from 1985 or whatever the hell it was before Mario was even called Mario.
yeah.
And it's a solid game. It's not bad. I feel like it does get a little bit old later on, but you
Hmm.
know, it holds up. It's just not as
Yeah.
much of a game as people would expect these days. Uh, but having that said, like I was thinking, looking at that at the Donkey Kong game, Donkey Kong Bonanza, is that what it's called?
Bananarama, I think, or something like that.
No, it's not Bananarama.
I think bananas Bonanza.
Yeah,
Maybe it's Bonanza. Banana is part of the pun. 100%.
yeah, it's Donkey Kong Bonanza. So
Okay.
I actually loved how expressive Donkey Kong was. His
Oh, absolutely.
facial expressions were going all over the place. Like, oh my god, hell yeah! But he was digging. It was fucking Minecraft. It was monkey Minecraft going on. He was
Monkey
digging and tearing
Minecraft.
through all the environment. It was destructible. Uh, honestly, the character designs for the evil monkeys or whatever you want to call them, for the villain characters were all really cool.
Oh yeah, they have like obviously it's not the same art style, but it gives me so many of that how they marketed and did the old Donkey Kong animation,
Yeah. Oh
like
my
the TV
god.
show. It has that exact right vibe from that era of show.
it it feels a little bit fresh, honestly, because every single
Mm.
time I've been playing Donkey Kong, the big bad is always K. Rool. We're fighting crocodiles, and it's always K. Rool at the end, and he's always just some big naked crocodile wearing a crown and a cape, and that's really all there is to it.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, I'm thinking back to like Donkey Kong 64, where it was still, to be fair, it was still K. Rool. It was still K. Rool, but there were a lot more characters involved. It was almost like an action
Hmm.
RPG platformer kind of thing going on, and a lot of the bosses throughout the levels had really interesting designs. I remember there was a goddamn Jack in the Box boss that I was stuck on for months, literally months.
Yeah.
God.
Um, but yeah, sorry, let's step back a little bit. I kind of wanted to talk about the hardware a little bit more.
So I think that
Um,
the hardware, it's not exactly inspiring. It's nothing that we haven't
no.
seen before. It's just an
Yeah.
iteration on what was already there, right? It's just a more powerful version of the Switch. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of why they gave it such a normal but meaningful name as Switch 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I still wish that they went with or went back to the super prefix naming convention. I think I mentioned that before, but that's just because I enjoy it. Like calling something like the Super Switch sounds fun, you
It does
know?
sound fun. It doesn't really. I feel like legitimately, if they called it the Super Switch, they would have a Wii U debacle on their hands again. They
Yeah,
learned,
but
and that's why
here's
they called it the Switch 2. They were like, we
yeah,
do
but
not
you
want
say
people
that,
not
but
understanding it's not a sequel.
there's still like, there's precedent before that, which is the Famicom or NES, and then the Super Famicom slash NES.
Yes, you are correct, but you have to remember the type of people who are going to be buying the Switch 2. It is primarily going to be uh, Zoomers
Millennials,
who were literally not alive when the Super NES came out,
I guess.
and parents who, despite the reality that a lot of parents now are millennials, they should know the difference between the NES and the Super NES. Back then, gaming still wasn't mainstream. And you gotta also consider that was over 30 years ago.
Don't do this.
The Super
Don't do
NES
this to us.
is literally more than three
Yeah, I know.
decades old. And there has
And
not been a sequel console called the Super previous
yes,
console since then.
I know. I know. I'm aware. I have thought about all those things too, which is like they could have. That's sort of the problem. They could have continued it. They didn't. Maybe they wish that they did, but they were like, we're too far gone now. It doesn't matter. But anyways, um, but
The
yeah, I
the
mean,
hardware
it's nice.
itself.
It's nice that like the hardware size is a little bit bigger. Like, it's not too much heavier, I presume, but I think they said that they tried to keep the same thickness, which is kind of nice. But the buttons are all a little bit larger. The joysticks are a little bit larger. In
To
other
my
words, it's built
understanding,
for
the
adult hands
Joy-Cons
too.
now, they connect via magnets as opposed to the
Yes.
previous version was on rails, right? And apparently there was a large
Yes.
issue of those rails breaking. They're expecting that the magnetic system is going to be a lot better, a lot easier, more durable in the long run.
I have not heard anything about the rails breaking, to be honest, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not a kid and I don't give my Switch to play with kids, but I can assume that it's probably kids breaking them more often than not.
Yeah.
Uh,
Another really
I
interesting
wonder,
feature that
so
okay.
they didn't confirm anything. And I don't know why they didn't. But I heard rumors that the joysticks that they're gonna use, the technology might be Hall effect joysticks, which is if you're not
Oh,
familiar,
that would be
they might,
nice.
yeah, it basically fixes stick drift,
Yeah.
which was a big problem that they had, and they technically still have. They never fixed it in
They
the
never
original
fixed it.
Switch.
Like, to
Yeah,
my
so
understanding, the EU actually passed laws requiring Nintendo to repair broken Joy Cons.
yes, yeah.
Like, they forced Nintendo into it. Nintendo, instead of just fixing the design of it, they were just like, okay, we'll fix or replace things.
I mean, honestly, from a Nintendo perspective, I wonder, I mean, they must have crunched the numbers,
They must
technologically
have.
speaking. They must have figured out that, it was cheaper to do less R&D and just replace them with the stuff that they already have, which is
Yeah.
kind of fair, if not somewhat disappointing for a the user. But I'm excited for the hardware. But the software is the part that kind of gets me right now. As in, like I said, I'm not that excited. I'm not a huge Mario Kart fan. I don't know if I care enough about the whole open world aspect of Mario Kart now. Um, I don't know. A lot of the games that we're saying they're going to be released either close to or on release day, I'm 50-50 on. I'm not going to get Cyberpunk for Switch 2.
Now, having
you
that
know?
said, like you touched on something, you're not that interested in a new Mario Kart. You're not that interested in the kart racer. Uh,
Yeah.
I think you might be alone in that. Or at the very least,
Maybe.
I think the gaming industry thinks you're alone on that. Because
I mean, it's probably going to be super
it's
fun,
not the
you know?
only kart racer that's coming out. We had two different kart racers in the launch announcement for the Switch 2. Not only did we have Mario Kart Worlds, we had Kirby Air Riders.
Oh yeah, there was Kirby Air Riders, but
Like I was
Kirby
watching
Air
that and I was
Ride,
thinking, it's like, wait a minute, you guys are making a sequel to a Kirby racing game from over 20 years ago that didn't
yeah.
really sell very well back then, even though it was a good game. And you're
Well,
doing it
Kirby's
to
had a
have
resurgence.
two different racing games at launch on the Switch.
Like
Hell
Kirby in
yeah.
general has had a resurgence in the last about 10 years or so. Like there's probably there's at least one, if not two or three, Kirby cafes in every major city in Japan.
I love that.
Like Kirby in general is a big thing, so I'm not that surprised. What I'm sort of surprised about, but I think it's because they don't want to take away from Mario Kart World, is the fact that we don't have a Diddy Kong Racing title, but they might be planning to release it as almost like a DLC to the world,
That would
if
be
I had to guess.
fantastic. I don't think we're ever going to see Diddy Kong Racing again. But like I was
I don't
saying,
know.
we don't only have two kart racing games coming out. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, a Sonic kart racing game, was announced about a month ago.
Hmm.
And that one's going to be on the Switch, on PlayStation 4 and 5, on the Xbone, and on
Hmm.
Windows. Probably going to be coming to Switch 2 eventually.
Yeah.
So we are in an era of kart racing games. Like all we need is like a Garfield kart racing to be get re-released.
Oh
And
God.
it's the
Yeah,
goddamn
I guess,
golden
eh?
era.
Did you know that there's a cart a cart. Did you know that there is a Garfield Mario Party?
No, I didn't.
I've seen the gameplay.
Did you
It's
know that there's a South Park Mario Party?
no.
Back on
These
the
are all
N64
things.
it existed.
Oh God. I'll look that up one day. Um they're all cursed.
There was also a
The other
South
thing,
Park kart racing game on the N64. Maybe that'll get a re-release.
uh-huh, uh-huh. I'm sure they're dying for that one.
Oh yeah, it was
Um
actually a good game.
on the topic of software, something that I feel like has been kind of overlooked in some of the news articles that I've been reading. I haven't actually tried to dive too deep into the announcement, so I haven't read too much. I'm really not sure how I feel about this whole upgrade package thing with the games.
I
So
think it's
some games
evil.
are going to be getting like a essentially like an HD remake
So we need to roll it
for
back a little
Switch.
bit to
Yeah,
to make it clear. The original Switch had two graphics modes. It could either run in 720p or in
that's
1080p when it was
handheld.
docked. The
Yep.
Switch 2 will run in 1080p all the time or up to 4K when it's docked. And
Hmm.
the Switch 2 is going to be entirely backwards compatible with the Switch 1 uh, library, correct?
Yeah, I believe the entire library is compatible, and then select games, most likely their first party stuff, primarily, will essentially have upgrade packs. So I think Mario Odyssey has one. Um,
Tears of the
I
Kingdom,
don't
I
know if
believe, was
Poco.
getting one as well.
I didn't hear anything about Pokemon Scarlet Violet, which is actually kind of crazy, considering a lot of people's gripes with that game is the graphical issues in general. Maybe even the Switch 2 can't fix Scarlet and Violet's problems.
Not even the Switch 2 can fix Game Freak programming.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. This is
So
I'm
my
I'm very on the fence about getting a Switch 2 on launch. Let's put it that way.
so let's look back at the history of like graphics upgrades in games. If we go
Yep.
all the way back to the Game Boy Color, when you popped in a non-Game Boy Color game in there, it would let you switch between different color palettes. So
Yes.
even black and white games could suddenly have bright, vibrant, interesting color palettes. And that
Well,
was super cool at the time. It
that's
didn't always
kind of
look
a
good.
lie. That's kind of a lie, or you're not lying, but it wasn't.
It
It
was
was a
literally
complete
free for
palette
them to do.
swap,
Yes, it
but
was.
like in a yeah, but in for people who don't know, and I assume that
There
there's a
were
lot of
four
people who don't
colors on the
know.
Game Boy. There was white,
Yeah,
there was black, and there were two shades of gray.
yes.
And so
But
what
what
the
they did in the upgrade was basically you could make it sepia tone, for example. So it's not like an actual Game Boy Color game. You would
it
have
wasn't just sepia
different.
tone, but sepia tone was one of the options. There were
Yes,
also
I
just
know, but let me
bonkers
finish. Let me
options.
finish.
Okay.
Let me finish. So in an actual Game Boy Color game, you would have, let's say, a house that was its own color, and your character would be its own color. But basically, if you popped in a non-Game Boy Color game, then you would just wash the color over, whether it was a green or a blue or a sepia, and I can't remember the last color. I think it might have just
No,
been black and
there were
white.
like 16 different palettes, and they were
Sure.
multicolor palettes. Like you could get a red and a green palette, I'm pretty sure was one of them, because
No, you
if
couldn't.
you were colorblind, get wrecked. But
No, you couldn't. It didn't
they weren't
swap any
monochromatic.
individual.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were all monochromatic.
they were
So
all
it was just
monochromatic
a
in the
swap.
way that uh, not monochromatic, I should say. They would take the color that was there and assign new colors to those palettes. It wasn't. It was just you could only have four colors at a time, no
The
matter
best
what.
way to think about it is that let's
But it was
say
a
you
graphical
were
upgrade.
looking at a
It was a
if you were
graphical
looking
upgrade.
at a if you were looking at a black and white photo and you put a color filter in front of your eyes to make it blue or green, that's what it looked like. That was the graphical upgrade.
And
It
you could
wasn't
choose the color.
exactly
It was great.
it wasn't defining
Now,
objects in color. It
now,
was
if we
just
go a little bit
adding
further
color
on,
to an object.
if we go a little bit further on, we
Yeah.
get things like PC gaming, where I can literally play the first version of Half-Life that was ever released. And instead of playing it at 640 by 480, I can play it at 4K. It'll work. And it'll look blurry, but my God, the models will have such high definition. I will be able to see G-Man's very high definition modeled face and the 128 pixel textures adorning
Texture.
it
Yes.
from a mile away. It'll be glorious. But if we go to other consoles, because let's not compare PC, that's not really fair. If we go to other consoles, the Wii could play GameCube games, but they were exactly the same. The
Yep.
Wii U could play Wii games, but they were exactly the same, even though the Wii U was more powerful. Even re-released virtual console games on the Switch. To my understanding, they look like the original game. Do they run at a higher resolution? Do you know? Because I never had a Switch.
So I'm gonna answer it sort of in a sideways fashion. The answer is no. Like, but what Nintendo has done historically is just do re-releases in HD remaster.
Yeah. In
That's
the
it.
past, if you
Like-
want the high def upgrade of a game, it was
Yeah.
you're buying the game again.
You're buying the game again in on a different console. So for example, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, they both have HD remakes, but they're on
The
3DS.
Yeah. And if I wanted to
You
play the
have
high
Skyward
definition
Sword.
version of Tales of Symphonia, for example, came out on the GameCube, well, that
Yeah.
means buy it on the PS3 or on the PC, which I
Yeah,
did
you have
both.
Skyward Sword that's on Switch.
GameCube, and it got ported to Switch, right?
Yeah. No, no, no. Skyward Sword, is
That
it
was a GameCube
GameCube, I
game,
think?
wasn't
Yeah,
it?
I think of it as a Wii game because it
Okay.
was actually developed for with motion in mind.
Am I thinking of
It's
Twilight Princess where it came out
You're
as
thinking of
like,
Twilight Princess,
yeah, okay,
technically.
okay. So Skyward Sword was a Wii game, and then it got launched
Yeah.
on the
Twilight Princess, I
Switch.
believe, also has a HD remake.
So
I just don't
on one
remember it's
hand,
on something. But anyways,
if we look at the historical methods that Nintendo has used, if you wanted the game in HD, just buy the game again is the answer. And when you look at it that way, the $20 for the upgrade isn't insane, but it feels kind of scummy when it's literally the exact game cartridge that you're using. Obviously,
it
it's
does.
downloading the updates. It's downloading the
Yes.
updates, and the game cartridge that you have is only a license key.
Yeah.
So it's not unheard of. It's not insane. But when it's literally the exact same game cartridge, something about that feels scummy.
It does. I The other problem, I guess, is that I don't know how they're handling it. Like, I'm assuming if you have a game cartridge, then you're not going to have to download the game again. But they did mention on the topic of game cartridges, they're using the same form factor on the outside, but on the inside, it's a faster
Oh, almost certainly.
flash card or whatever you want to call it, right? Like
It has
it
been
reads
like 8
faster.
years, something like that, since the Switch came out to begin
Switch
with.
released, yeah.
So the reality is flash storage has gotten really fast since then.
Yes. So the thing is, is it worth it to upgrade? Like it's weird to ask, right? Because it's only $20 to upgrade. But are you then stuck with sort of still an inferior um
I feel like your loading times aren't going to be much different. In fact,
yeah, that's kind of what I'm
considering
getting
that
at.
you're loading up higher resolution textures and such, but those textures will be coming off of the internal storage, which should be faster than the older cartridges.
Hmm.
Realistically, your loading times might even be faster, even though you're getting
Maybe.
higher resolution textures. I would just say you literally have the game. You've already played it how many times? Do you really need it to be in 4K instead of 1080p since it was already designed to run in 1080p
Also
because
true.
that was the docked mode of the Switch before? So
Hmm.
you're getting 4K for your TV and you're getting textures to go along with it. I feel like for most users, in their most common use case, that won't make a difference. Just why bother?
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, one other
Uh
weird thing about their games is that they
yeah.
announced something called, I don't know what the exact name is, I should say, but they've basically released a cartridge that is only a game key. And this is something that's existed in enterprise hardware for a long time, like server hardware, data center hardware, where you can buy a piece of software, and it can be very, very expensive software, to run on your server. And instead of having like a serial key, like we're used to as consumers, like a Windows 10
Yeah,
key or a
sure.
Windows XP key or a Half-Life serial key, they'll have like a USB dongle or a serial dongle that its existence is what validates that you own the game. Nintendo has done something similar with the Switch, where there are certain games where having the cartridge has no local game files. You plug it in, and it is literally just a license key to activate the game, and you have to download the whole thing. Luckily,
What game
the
are you talking about? Because that's not my experience with the current Switch.
no, this is new for the new Switch. This
Oh.
is all new. There are certain cartridges that will not have a local version of the game. So you will
Oh.
have to download the game if you want to play it at all. Now,
Interesting.
with some of the game prices that are coming out, there's not one unified game price, But games on the Switch are more expensive. In US terms, they're $80 for a digital version and $90 for a physical version.
Hmm.
If you paid a $10 premium for a physical version of the game and you
You
still
would
had
want
to
the actual
download
game
it
files on it.
anyway, wouldn't you feel
Yeah.
ripped off?
You know
And
why they're doing that though, right?
I
Like it's a pretty simple, I think it's a pretty simple number one reason that they're doing it that way.
there's a couple different reasons that come to mind. Either they want to make the cartridges cheaper, they don't want to include the $5 or $10 for the NAND flash on the card. Or they're going to assign those key cards to an individual Nintendo account so that those flash cards can't be sold after. I kind of expect that, but if they were going to do it that way, why give a cartridge at all? That's just e-waste. You could just give them a paper download code like you do with a lot of boxed PC games these days. As much as I hate that, that is an awful experience. I really, really hope they don't tie these keys to an individual account. But
I think they might.
another really scummy thing that it gives them the potential to do is if you buy that key cartridge used, they might say you have to pay again for maybe some of the online features or things of that nature.
Their online's different. I would probably say the things that they might do like a reactivation price or something like that.
Exactly, like a
But I think
reactivation
it's,
fee.
yeah. I guess the problem, I don't know. Nintendo is such a closed environment
They are a
that
closed environment
they can
with
kind
pants
of
on
do
head
they can
thinking.
kind of do whatever they want, right? So
I have a friend who compared them to Apple in that way, where they can do
yeah.
anti-competitive things and consumers will still buy the products.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
I
there's
feel
just a
like
lot
bad
of
precedents are
things to
being set.
dissect about it. And then there's the price.
So, for the price of the console itself, it is high. But I don't think the console price itself is unfair. So it's looking 450 US or 500 for the Mario Kart bundle. In Canadian terms, I believe it is 630
It's like
Canadian
620
and
and then like
700 for the Mario Kart bundle.
yeah.
If you do
Yeah.
a direct comparison of CAD to USD, that's actually cheaper for us by about $10
Yes.
Canadian.
That being said,
It's a high
uh
price.
it's a high price. It basically all but guarantees that like games are not cheap either.
The
Like it's
games
not about
being what
buying
they
just the
are,
console.
that is actually the egregious part to me. So,
Yes.
if you do the comparison of inflation against the Wii to the Switch 2, it actually comes out to about the
Hmm.
same price. In real terms, the Switch 2 costs in purchasing power what the Wii did when it came out, and the Wii was famously cheap.
Yes.
But the games, on the other hand, oh my god, $80 US, 90 for a physical copy. And I
Hmm.
think they said like
That would be like
100 to
110.
110 Canadian for these
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
Something about that triple digit price point feels really, really bad. I remember when
It
I
really
bought Hey
does
You Pikachu
because
on the N64, it was $115 after tax. I still
yeah.
haven't paid that much for a video game all at once.
Yeah.
DLCs be
I
wild,
think
but
I think it feels especially bad because Nintendo tends to market itself as the family and kid-friendly option, and
yeah,
you'd like to think that that should be cheaper.
it
I'm not
should
saying
be.
that's necessarily true because it's not like Disneyland is cheap. You know what I mean? Like I get it. I do understand. It just feels like it's a bit of a gutting move.
It is
It also
gutting.
sucks. I don't know how you feel about this. I know how I feel about it, but the Switch in Japan is cheaper because
Yes.
it's language locked to just Japanese.
So they region locked and language locked the Japanese version. It is, in comparison, 350 US dollars. So it is
Yes.
100 US dollars cheaper. That
Like that
is
is
a
significant.
massive difference to the
Yeah.
point where my speculation at first is that Japan was already expecting US tariffs and was pricing
Yeah.
it for the Western market accordingly. Uh,
Yeah.
and then the tariffs actually came out, and even Nintendo was blindsided to the point where they delayed pre-orders in North America by a week. That price
All
is
I'm
going
saying
up.
is in this day and age, region locking is insane.
It is insane. It's stupid.
It's a really bad marketing move, except for their company because their general audience won't care. If you told that to
The
where like
reality
if you told
is,
that to people who where companies general audience was actually more of like the PlayStation, Xbox, PC gaming, people would be very
you
pissed.
have to
Nintendo
be
people will
a
not care as much.
gaming enthusiast, and you have to actually be doing a lot of research to even find out about
Yeah,
the cheaper Japan only version.
true.
So, and the other reality is that Japan wages in Japan are so much lower than they are in
Yeah,
the US. The average wage in Japan is lower than the average wage in Canada even.
yeah.
So
The
Nintendo
government's been
actually has
artificially
to create a
yeah.
cheaper version for their domestic market to even be able to play
Yep.
it.
Their government artificially lowers and keeps grocery prices down
Yeah.
um, in order to justify the salary costs or the salary numbers of Japan. But anyways, there's a lot of economics in that. I don't want to get into that.
I think that
It's
even when
it's tough.
Nintendo is selling millions and millions of copies of these games, even if the price of the game does not keep up with inflation, that is okay because they are selling 2 to 3 times more copies of the game than they were
Hmm.
20 years ago. And quite frankly, I refuse. I refuse to give Nintendo that sort of credit. I refuse to give them that money. I need to play myself some Super Mario Man. I need to kill two birds with one stone.
I mean, it's the way to do it. If you've ever liked playing Pokemon, but you just wish that it was Mario themed, that's exactly what that is.
Luigi
I
sent out
recommend
a
you check it out.
Goomba.
I played it for a little bit now. I'm not super deep into it. I don't actually know if I'll finish the game, to be honest. But it is fun. It's a fun little project. It's cough a lot cheaper than any Nintendo product. Cough. I have
So
nothing else to
much
say about that,
cheaper.
but it's a fun time.
I very rarely do I ever get through ROM hacks or things of that nature. Just
Yeah.
because when it comes to emulated games, I don't feel a strong attachment to them. I don't feel like I need to play them. The feeling of loss or not getting your money's worth isn't there to push me to play them to completion.
Why is that such a motivator for you? That's so bad.
No, legitimately, back when I was like in high school, when I was a penniless child, when I got one physical video game, that would be the only new game that I had for like 5 months. So
mean,
I had to get my
that was
money's
all of
worth.
us.
So
Yeah, and you play it down and you start being like, I played it down. This game cost $40 and I played 40 hours, so it was only $1 an hour.
I would get like 500 hours. I don't fucking care.
Dude,
But
I think to
as
this
soon
day,
as
my
I would
greatest
play,
value is Orange Box.
oh, straight up, yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Da-
easily.
Orange Box, I'm pretty sure I got like 6,000 hours of entertainment out of that. $60, I think it was Canadian at the time. Maybe it was 40. I
Yeah,
don't
it might
remember.
even be 50. I can't remember.
Uh,
Those were the days.
but whereas a lot of games, like even back when I was in high school, I could play a Game Boy game on an emulator.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I didn't pay any money for this, and I'm not really enjoying it, so I can actually just put it down.
I guess that's one way of looking at it. But yeah, I I concur with all the things that we've said. I won't lie that I want a Switch 2. I just don't know when I'll get a Switch 2. I'm not
I
that hyped.
legitimately have no desire to purchase a Switch 2 right now. The only thing that would really make me want one or purchase one is if for some reason every single friend that I had on Discord was like, hey, Angelo, buy a Switch 2. Let's play Mario Kart. Let's play Kirby Air Riders. I'm weak to kart racing games.
Well, unfortunately, they've got you there.
I'll just tell them no. Buy Garf Kart on Steam. We're
Get on
garfing
Garf
today.
Kart, loser.
Get on Garf Kart.
All right. I think that's a good place to end, as
I think it's time to go play Garf Kart. Bye-bye.
I will not be playing. You enjoy that by yourself. Goodbye, everybody.